Hello, students, and hello, world. Welcome to our very first episode here at GOTALKTO English Podcast. And as you can see, we have our dashing with beauty and intelligence and cool personality, Teacher Anna.
Hello, everyone. I'm really excited being here. Thank you for having me here. I'm really honored.
Thank you so much for accepting my invitation, Teacher Anna. And yes, to those guys who are interested to know more about the top highest paying job in Germany, then this episode is for you. Because Teacher Anna is going to share with us a day in the life in Germany. What are the requirements in that country? For example, what English level they require before you get the job, and a lot more. We will also get to know more about our beautiful Teacher Anna that she doesn't usually share with other people. So only here at GOTALKTO that she'll reveal some cool secrets about her and for you guys to know her better.
Yes.
Okay, so basically our topic for today is about the top highest paying job in Germany. Aside from following your passion, if a good salary is important to you guys, then join with us. It's just going to take us 30 minutes to give you a full packed information podcast. So let's start with the first question.
All right, let's start.
How are you feeling right now, Teacher Anna?
I'm feeling great. It's a really amazing, wonderful sunny day here in Germany. So it's like 6:45, so it's already like, dinner time. It's a really nice atmosphere here. Thank you. I'm feeling great.
Cool. That's very cool. Now, as you can see, I have prepared a list of questions for Teacher Anna. These questions are from most of my students and other young professionals. And I'm pretty sure that you may be sharing the same questions too. So here we go.
Go ahead.
So, Teacher Anna, can you share about a life in a day when you were in Germany?
So yes, of course. So I would say we will talk about a usual professional working day in Germany. Just before I start, so me personally, I'm studying psychology. I'm a flight attendant part-time, so I'm not right now in this moment working a 9-to-5 job, but I will explain to you how that would be, as I have worked before a 9-to-5, and I have also, like my husband, my friends, everyone working 9-to-5. So the usual day in Germany is people would wake up quite early, and then so we would have breakfast at home, and usual Germans, they like to have like sweet or salty breakfast. I know that there are other countries like Italy, they prefer, just, have sweet, or the French with the croissant, the coffee. No, in Germany, like people would eat, like maybe salty stuff, cheese, sausages, or as well, like, jam or whatever, something sweet.
Now that makes me hungry.
Yes, and then they would go to work, so depending where they live. So some of them, let's say in the big cities, it's very usual people would take public transport, as there's a really quite good infrastructure in Germany. So they would take the subway, they would take the train, or as well, which is really common, bicycles. So they would just like take their bike to work, or rent a bike to work, or even if it's possible, walk to work. Of course, if you would live outside the big cities, then, it's more usual to have your own car, and then you would just, drive to work. And then maybe you start, let's say typical would be between 7:30 a.m. and 9, I would say. Like, I think like later than 9 would be really unusual. Talking about the kind of big companies and the kind of, not talking about the little startups, let's say in Berlin. Yeah, that would be the usual. And then, you would start working, you will have your meetings, and then, well, it depends, like, not everyone can go on time, but usually like people would leave their offices around 5, and then, depending, if they live in a big city, would maybe go for after work drink to be a bit outside, or then as well, like a typical activity in Germany is, go spazieren gehen, which is like going for a walk. Most of the people would go in a park or like in a forest, just walking a little bit in nature, to just take a breath outside of all this technical world that we're connected all the time with phones. So like people in Germany, like a typical thing really as well on the weekend, like activity is like hiking or going for a walk. So we have two different words for that. One is wandern and die Wanderung, which is really important. So people would, take their backpack and they would, go hiking for like quite some hours. Or if, like you go for einen Spaziergang, that would be a walk, maybe like 1-2 hours. You would walk around the park and maybe, pass through the city. And then this is what like Germans do a lot.
Wow. As I can see that you put high value in the sense of balance between work and leisure.
Yes.
So that's pretty cool.
It's really important, I think, as well, to have, if you're sitting in front of the computer a whole day, to have, like a break where you can really, create your own thoughts and, like, produce all the input that we get the whole day long. Yeah.
Exactly. And yes, I would definitely agree that it's totally important for your mental health, because as human as we are, we need to rest a little bit. So that's very important. And get some fresh air.
Exactly. And what is also very typical in Germany is we like a country with 4 seasons, right? So, depending on the season, right now it's September, so it's getting a little bit fresher. Soon it will be, the days will be shorter, so there will be a bit more rain. And, like we really love our 4 seasons. So, we take out slowly our winter clothes, our autumn clothes, and we will pack away, the summer clothes. So, depending as well on the seasons, it depends as well what kind of activities we do. Of course, if it's really, really cold outside and raining or, snowing, maybe, we would stay rather inside and, not go for the walk, or we would really pack up, wrapped up in huge, jackets and would go then for like an Wanderung, for example.
Yes. I can say that it's extremely cold out there.
In the winters, yes, in the winters. Right now, it's still quite warm. Yeah.
Yeah, we can see the sun rays and it's really beautiful.
Yeah.
Anyway, so let's move on to our main topic, which is the top highest paying job. For you, what do you think are the top 5 highest paying job, or at least give us top 3?
All right. So that really depends. I think that's really as in most of the countries. So let's say finance jobs are really highly paid. If you are in the, top management and the board of, the big multinationals, of course, the salary is extremely high. But I think that's not exactly like the typical answer you're looking for, because that would be like, worldwide the case. So I would rather, apart from that, I would rather pick some different ones. So for example, dentists or doctors, depending on which career they would go, they're as well quite expecting high salaries, especially with kind of working experience. Okay, so let's say after like 10 years of experience as a professional, you can, expect a quite high salary if you're like a doctor, if you are a dentist. And then as well, of course, like in the finance sector, as I said, if you, work in banking, M&A, and this kind of, finance jobs or consulting companies. And apart from that, which is, I think, for foreigners especially interesting, is the software engineering part that we have in Germany.
That's right.
Because actually we're looking for, so Germany is looking for, software developers, programmers, and all this kind of engineers in that field. And I think it's also easier for people in that profession to enter Germany, because, like, a language is not always required. So of course it's recommendable to speak German after some time, but it's not like, an entry requirement. You need to meet in order to just, get in the job. So yeah, I think this is something that I would really like to emphasize and mention. So if someone maybe is interested anyway in this field, it could be something, possible to work in Germany. I have students who work for Google, for example, and they just have started, studying German, but they have been living for some time in Germany already and just working in English and of course in the programming language, which is kind of, it's like international. It's like a different language, right?
Yeah, and that leads me to my next question. Let's say I'm a fresh graduate and I'm from the Asian countries, which is Philippines. So
Yes.
what do you think is my future if I'm a fresh graduate? Are they, requiring more on the experience, or is it about the education level?
Yeah. That's a really good point, actually. So, especially in this field we're talking about, I think so much experience actually is not required. As for example, my students, they're really young and they don't have, 10 years of experience. But what is a really important point in Germany, and I really would like to emphasize that, is we are a country which is very focused on degrees and kind of, like papers that prove your education. So for example, here, I mean, that's just an example. In any other country, maybe if you're driving trucks, for example, you wouldn't have the extra 3 years education for that, right?
Right, exactly.
So in Germany, for any kind of work, even if it's something, that doesn't maybe need a full, education or specification, the country or the government is really looking for people who take, classes or get deeper in the materials. So for any kind of job, you need degrees, or it doesn't need to be university necessarily, but like any kind of, like training that you have done, they wanted to approve the paper.
Yeah,
Yes, so
related to the
especially I
job.
think if you're, let's say like a student, you've graduated in engineering or software engineering, and then, that's already like good, you could already start applying with that degree in Germany. Absolutely, yes.
That's really cool. So basically, for you guys who are outside Germany, then you still definitely have a future in Germany. All you have to do is, bring all your papers. We actually just had a small conversation with teacher Anna, and she shared to me that Germany is such a very structured company, especially for corporate level. So prepare all your papers and make sure that you speak the language, either German and English. So my question is, especially English. So is it correct to say that next to German language, English is the dominant language used in your country?
No, I would definitely not say that. So I have visited countries as, Singapore or Dubai, as well the Philippines. I know where actually everyone is speaking English.
Right.
So that's not the case in Germany. Like everyone learns German in school, but maybe after that, maybe you would never use it or you would never need it. So, like you wouldn't expect, or, people living in the countryside, for example, speaking fluent English. Yeah, that's not the case. So that's why I think it's really important if you live here on long term, let's say, to really learn the language. So, I mean, if you're just here, for like a few months for internship or for a short time, if you're working in software sector or programming, then you wouldn't maybe need it. But let's say in any other case, if you want to, settle down here and have your life in Germany, it's highly recommendable to really take your time and make the effort to really study the language. As like let's say you would go to the countryside and even if you stay in a little hotel or if you go to a restaurant or bakery, you can't expect people speaking English. And it really happens. And like of course, apart from the big cities as Berlin or Hamburg or Cologne, people would speak English. But still, if you will meet a bunch of Germans, and they're used to speak German, they would probably always come back to speak German and you would feel bad. So I think it's really a good thing if you plan and think of settling in Germany to really study the language, you know, take your time and, you know, slowly by slowly, you know, get familiar with the German language.
And to all the guys who were students who are listening to us right now, that's the great thing about choosing teacher Anna as your teacher, because she can definitely relate to you. So let's say if you're having a hard time translating the English word like coffee, then it's totally easy for her to translate it for you. And that's the great thing about having a bilingual teacher, because the learning of the language comes smoothly.
Yes, exactly. I think that's really something, you know, if you're able to explain something, especially vocabularies, and in the very beginning, it makes things much easier. But then, of course, later on, you know, we always try to just speak, you know, German with the students in order, you know, to make them getting used to the German sounds and, you know, like training as well, the listening comprehension. Yes.
Which do you think is harder to learn, English or German?
Well, unfortunately, I think that's definitely German because like grammar wise, it's quite difficult. So let's say like, I think English is really difficult to get a really perfect, fluent, scientific like a level of speaking. So if I would write, for example, as I study psychology, I as well have, you know, have to read a lot of science papers in English. So like, you know, I don't have problems to communicate in a daily conversation. But, you know, when it comes to science, I can also see, okay, this is the border. So I think English as well is not super easy to study. And I think there's also like a certain level where you need to force yourself more. However, I think German, you know, just to enter into the language, it's a bit difficult. It's also because, of course, English is known worldwide. You know, everyone listens to, you know, English pop music or, you know, like English movies, like, you know, American movies. So we get familiar with this, like, you know, when we're like 6 years old. So I think it's really harder to study German, but it's definitely not impossible. And I have really good example students who, you know, learned in such a really short time, a really good German. You know, it doesn't matter if they still make grammar mistakes, but, you know, it's like you're going out there, you're speaking the language with confidence, and, you know, you're not afraid if people would ask you something. So this is what we're aiming at for the beginning, right? And then, you know, the rest will come by itself, you know, like slowly but slowly you study a bit more. But like, you know, to get to that level that you go out and say, okay, I can speak German, and, you know, whatever I want to ask, I can ask. Whatever someone ask me, I can deal with it. So this is the level I'm always looking for when people start to study German.
What do you think is the hardest word for German? What's the hardest word
to mean as a profession or as in studying the language?
It can be both. It's up to you.
Well, I think let's talk more about the languages. So, well, the hardest part in German language is the grammar, you know, like, so for example, for the people who have studied German before, they know what I'm talking about. So for example, if we have like a past sentence structure, we will just always put the participle verb at the end of the sentence. So it would be like, if I can translate in English, so I have, for example, I have bread, fruits, and coffee eaten, you know? So I know in English we will say I've eaten or I ate, and then you will see whatever you've done. And then in German it will be different. So, you know, people tend to forget the verb at the end, or, you know, they're like very different kind of declinations. So this is quite difficult if people have never heard about this before, you know.
Exactly.
They never, so this is quite, I think, challenging, but sometimes it's even funny. Like, you know, like people say, like, it's not possible. How would you even like make that grammar up? But yeah, of course, it's not impossible. And it's just like logic, you know, like if you put the puzzles together, you
Mm-hmm.
will just understand it, and then you can just practice doing it. So it's not impossible. So I really want to, encourage the people, when they start and they find it difficult, just don't give it up. You can, learn it by the time. It's really not impossible.
And to all our listeners out there, now you know that it's good to do a self study, but it's always best to get someone to help you professionally, just like Teacher Anna. If you
Yes,
notice, I'm not trying
especially
to
for the
promote her,
speaking.
but definitely I just really see the need to talk to someone professional enough to teach you about any language, especially German, because how would you know if you did it correctly, right? The most important thing about getting a teacher or having a one-to-one class, just like what we do here at Go Talk To, is you'll get the feedback like immediately and you can correct yourself right away. And it's always fun to have someone to talk to, right?
Yes, that's true. And especially, I think it's like, the barrier like people would face, like maybe, they have already studied like 5 books, and they, they
Mm-hmm.
have understood the grammar. But I have the experience that, sometimes it's really difficult if you have learned a language on the paper, maybe you
Mm-hmm.
have already passed some exams, or if you're going out there and you need to start speaking. That happened to me with English and with other
Mm-hmm.
languages that I've learned in my life, that I have learned it in school, I've learned it somewhere else, but then, when it came the moment that I had to use it with like a native speaker, that was even the worst part, that I wouldn't even understand anything after studying for so many years. So that's why I think, like one-to-one class, it's very different than just studying on your own.
I totally agree. Now, what was the funniest experience did you have when you learned a second language? So that those people out there will feel that it's normal to have mistakes or
Well,
commit mistakes.
to be honest, so I'm a really passionate language learner. I have studied actually 7 foreign languages apart from my native German. And so there are 2 funny things. So actually, the one is kind of really sad or tragic that I really felt. So I have studied English in my entire school career. So it was like 13 years I've studied English. And,
Wow.
the final high school exam, which is called Abitur in German, it's
Mm-hmm.
not easy. Yeah, so you would write maybe like 10 or 15 pages about the British Empire. It's quite politic, and you
Mm-hmm.
have a lot of words to use. So I finished high school, I did that exam, and then I went to Korea for a year, as my mom is
Mm-hmm.
Korean. So I was, curious to learn about her culture and her language.
Mm-hmm.
And then that's where in that university, I met Americans. So
Okay.
I have never been like really in America before. I've never really talked to native English speakers. And then, so I have studied 13 years English.
Okay.
And then I remember this guy, Chris, and he asked me after school, he asked me like, how is it going?
Okay.
So, and that was the moment that I was like, oh, I'm just going home, like I couldn't actually reply to that simple question, because I have learned in school in first grade something, how are you? Thank you, I'm fine. This is what I learned. So, like after studying such a long time, I wasn't really able to even say one sentence to like a native English or
Mm-hmm.
American like English speaking person. And that's like a really good example that I was saying before, like learning a language on the paper is good, but it doesn't really mean that you speak the language as well. So this
Mm-hmm.
needs really practice, and with a lot of moments of frustration. I would sit on a table with a lot of like English speaking or native speaking as well, like
Mm-hmm.
people as well in Korea. I wouldn't understand anything. And I was thinking, are they really speaking English? I mean, the language that I have learned for so many years. So this
Right.
is why I always emphasize on people speaking a language when they learn it as well. Well, and then there's a second example, learning a language. So I studied Chinese in university, and
Mm-hmm.
it's a really different language than the European languages.
True.
Um, And also, what is really funny in Chinese, so it really depends on the accent you're doing. If you, for example, say when or when. So when, it would be like, well, when it means like, can I ask you something, for
Oh,
example. But if you put the accent different, it's like the meaning is kiss you, So there's a lot of confusions because for us, it doesn't really make a
were you
difference. Like
talking to a guy at that time?
yes,
Oh my
I
gosh.
asked in class to the teacher, which actually was a male one, if I can ask him. And then he was like, I'm not sure if I understood your question. So yeah, I mean, these are the little things of languages I love. When you study a new language, there are so many things that you have never thought about, and it widens your horizons so much. Like you will understand and see the world from really different perspective. You're so much more open to countries and to languages and to the people itself. Because you understand them if you speak their own language.
That's true. Imagine if he would have responded to you right away. He could probably lose his job.
I don't even want to think about that.
Imagine a beautiful woman like her asking you about that word.
Thanks God
It's
it
an
was
offer
like
that's too hard
someone
to
random on the street.
say no.
Yes, but there's in any language, there are kind of little curiosities, or if you speak one language and then you would use the same word and you would have it in another language, it's completely different, right? For example, in Korean, ne, like my mom is Korean, ne is yes, where in many other
Right.
languages, ne, it means no,
Correct.
definitely no.
Nah,
So,
like that.
it's really interesting. And when you start studying one language, maybe you're curious learning another language, and then you can see if you go to GOTALKTO, you see different teachers, different languages, and maybe you're curious about learning something else. So I can really encourage people, start learning languages, and then see whatever you like, and then you will easier learn the second and the third and the fourth language, right?
Exactly. Imagine, guys, 7 languages in one teacher. How cool is that? Just
Yes,
make sure you specify what language you'd like to learn from her, because when you say ne in Korean, it means yes, but in English American, it means no. So be specific what you're asking for. All right, so just real quick, because we have 5 minutes left. Wow, it's just time really flies too fast.
Passes so fast with you, Melody,
Yes.
really.
Thank you. So let's move on to the last question, and then we'll move on to our favorite part, the icebreaker questions. Okay, what is the typical work culture in Germany in 2 sentences?
Okay, typical work culture, I would say, is reliability. So, if you say yes, you mean yes. If it's not possible, you're really clearly saying no. So it's really direct, like the communication. I know in other countries it's more difficult. We really say yes or no, and no is a no, and it's not offensive. Yeah,
I love that.
Yes, but for some, I think for some cultures, it's maybe some difficult. You would rather say, "Oh, I'm not sure. Let's see." So in Germany, it's yes or no, and as well, the communication would be really direct. So you wouldn't like something, so you would tell that to the person right away, which can be maybe not the best moment, but things are really clear. So it's always A to B directly, and then as well, let's say in the big companies, the structure is still more hierarchical. Like it's you would go to your manager, then there's the junior, senior manager, and so on. It's not as the new tech companies. It's more the old-fashioned system still. But so the direct communication is something really typical German, I would say.
I love that, because I mean, you should take it as it is, right? I mean, you gotta be frank. All people deserve honesty. But I understand you. Some people may take it as rude because you're just saying no right away without finding any options.
Oh yes, yes.
So it's different from culture to culture. All right. Well, I appreciate you for answering all her questions. let's move on to our favorite part.
Okay,
Icebreaker questions.
All right.
All right, so I could just imagine your professor's facial expression when you said that. Okay.
Yes. No,
One
it's really,
minute.
yeah, it's really nice to, like, and something I would really like to mention is any language that you speak, I would really recommend, if you have the chance, of course, to visit the country and, like to dive into the culture, to speak to
Yes.
the people in their country. That is the best thing you can do. And that is like the best way you will also learn it, of course.
Yes, and that's what we offer here at Go Talk To. We have immersions, we have real spoken conversation, real spoken language conversation. So definitely makes it quicker for you to learn the language.
Oh, yes.
All
And
right.
as well fun.
Yes, of course, it's fun. And the teachers are beautiful. Look at us.
You're making me blush.
And you know what? There's someone said, I'm not just gonna wear blush. I'm just gonna let someone compliment me. So I would blush.
Ah.
Okay, so let's start. Let me just give a few seconds allowance. 7 seconds. Okay, are you ready?
All right, let's start.
Okay. Let's play favorites. We call it as favorites because we'll talk about all the things that she loves. So here it is. You got to answer real quick or real fast, all right? Because it's just going to take us a minute.
Okay.
Favorite dessert?
Favorite dessert? Lemon cream.
Favorite vacation place?
I can say so many beautiful places around the world.
Anything. Just say anything.
Okay, Panama.
Favorite drink?
Favorite drink? Mango lassi.
Favorite song?
Favorite song? I love Vivir sin aire from Mana.
Favorite language?
Favorite language? It depends. It really depends. Right now, I love Spanish, but that can switch all the time.
Favorite movie?
Favorite movie? A Beautiful Mind.
Favorite time of the day?
Midnight.
Favorite subject?
Psychology.
Favorite motivational quotes?
Realize that the really thing you have is just the moment.
Wow. The feels. Favorite English and German word?
So favorite English word is wonder. I love wonder. Have a sense of wonder or any kind of wonder. And then German word, I love the word fabelhaft, which is kind of fabulous. Yeah.
That's it. Well, as you can see, we might have made it more than a minute, but that was really cool. We're able to finish it. And I want to thank you again for joining me today, Teacher Anna.
So much, Melody, for inviting me, for having me here, really.
Yes, I really had fun, and I hope you guys also had fun and have learned a lot today, especially the English language and a few Korean and German language. It was really full packed with information. And we would like to invite you guys to please subscribe to our YouTube channel. Also follow and like us on Facebook, Instagram. We're also in the TikTok world, and we're also on Twitter. And just visit our website at www.gotalkto.com because we are giving away a free 30-minute trial class, and that's worth $10 credit that you can use for your first language of your choice and teacher of your choice. Do you have any other things that you'd like to share, Teacher Anna, before we end this podcast?
But anyway, if you want to contact me, you can find me on Instagram on Happy Anna Maria for any query or anything you want to know. Please contact me, or otherwise book your class with me on GOTALKTO as well.
Thank you so
much.
much.
I wish you a beautiful night And
Thank you.
yeah, thank you for having me here, really. It was an honor. It was really a pleasure. Thank
Well,
you.
same here, same here. And once again, this is Teacher Melody and our guest, Teacher Anna. And always remember that there's no other better time to learn than now. So enroll now at GOTALKTO.com. Have a beautiful day.